So this is my latest watch pickup, the IWC Mark XV. And when I have it here with the latest Mark XX, it's surprising that these two watches are 23 years apart. You might be wondering, why wouldn't I just choose the latest version of the Mark XX from 2022, which has more power reserve, brighter lume, more water resistance, easy strap change capability, a micro adjustable bracelet, and still relatively thin and wears great at 40 millimeters. Today I'll share 5 reasons why I chose the IWC Mark XV over other great go anywhere do anything watches, and number 5 is my favorite reason, so make sure to stick around until the end. So for context, my other options were the Omega Aquaterra 38mm black lacquer, the Longines Spirit Zulu Time Titanium, which I own, the IWC Mark XX, Mark XII, Pilot Watch 36, and even the 39mm Hodinkee version, the Rolex Explorer, and even a Hamilton khaki field. And in writing this video script, I learned so much about IWC's Mark series history. Like, I learned too much that I was overloaded with all the details, which is funny because a lot of people look at this watch and think it's just a plain printed dial. Like, what's the big deal? I'm mainly going to focus on why I like the Mark XV over the other models, with mentions of some of the other ones. Let's first start with number 1, the case details. So the IWC Mark XV is a 38mm case with a thickness of 10.4 millimeters and a lug-to-lug of 47 millimeters. And that is all Goldilocks proportions for my 6.4-inch wrist. And now that I've been wearing it for a few months, I noticed that it wears very flat on the wrist, the lugs curve down, and it is relatively lightweight even when I wear it on the bracelet, which I'll get to later. The case and bracelet are all brushed finished, but there are slight accents of polish on the bezel and the lugs. The crystal is relatively flat with minimal doming with anti-reflective coating on just one side because I don't see that blue tint shining back, which I really appreciate, and helps out with the legibility. And in the current IWC Pilot Watch series, the 38mm size is not offered. So you have 40mm from the Mark XX, a 39mm in the Spitfire, and a 36mm in the Pilot Watch. So case sizing was definitely an important factor for me, but if it only came down to do with the sizing, I could have easily settled between the 39 or 36mm because those are also two sizes I like. For comparison, even though the 40mm on the Mark XX is a great size, the lug-to-lug is about 50mm, making it wear longer than expected and that I personally like. Now, number 2, let's talk a little history of the Mark series because it'll connect to the dial. I'm no expert when it comes to the history of IWC's Mark series, but IWC has a deep history. The first was the Mark IX, which was a solid field watch. Fun fact, the name Mark IX only came after there was a Mark X, and then IWC was like, wait, we actually had a watch before Mark X, let's just call it the Mark IX. Next came the Mark X, which is part of a group of now collectible watches called the Dirty Dozen. These were watches that had stricter requirements requested from the British Ministry of Defense for military use. Among IWC were brands such as Longines, Omega, and Jaeger-LeCoultre, to name a few. Skip ahead to the Mark XI to 15, and these were a group of watches developed for the British RAF or Royal Air Force. Navigators would use these watches during their dead reckoning duties. And you can see the design details right away from Mark X to 11. Mark XI now added an IWC in-house manual winding caliber, the paddle hour hand, and even had a broad arrow which was given to the military watches. Next, the Mark XII updated the dial and the movement to a Jaeger-LeCoultre movement, and then Mark XV updated the case size to 38mm from 36 and moved to an ETA-based movement. And for those wondering why there is no Mark XIII and 14, well, because IWC, or the International Watch Company, wanted to use numbers that were not unlucky. 13 is obviously unlucky, like Friday the 13th, but 14 is also very unlucky in Mandarin Chinese because when you say the number 14, it is pronounced 14, which sounds like the translated word definitely dead. It's like worse than the word death. So yeah, that's why there's no 13 and 14. The Mark XV is what some people would kind of say is a downgrade for the military watches because they replaced a JLC movement for an ETA movement and it also became more of a civilian product. But yeah, I like that. Then after Mark XV comes number 16 and onwards to the modern Mark XX, which we have today. So going through the history of the Mark series, I realized that I like the dial and size of the Mark XV the most. The 12 o'clock hour marker has a triangle up top with a rectangular hour marker above it. The hour marker font is serif, making it elegant and straightforward to read. Obviously, I mentioned the 38mm size, and the date window is perfectly placed where the 3 o'clock hour marker would go. And no, I don't mind that it is a white date wheel on a black dial. Finally, the handset on the Mark 15 is the last series to use the paddle hour marker. If you take a look at the hour marker, you'll see that it's squared off. Later models would adopt the Flieger hands, which kind of look like propellers on a plane. I blame my Seiko at 62MAS SJE093 for ruining me, because now I really like the look of the rectangular hands. Now, the only thing I wish was better on the dial was the lume. It's on the 12369 squares as well as the arrow, but it's not that bright or long lasting. It just gets the job done. And I'm always surprised how often I catch myself looking at the Mark 15 dial because of how clean and legible it is, and I can see why this makes a great pilot's watch. And I've never considered myself as someone who exclusively loves pilot watches, even though I have owned at least 5 previously in the Cartier Santos, Longines Spirit, and IWC Mark 15. If you ask 10-year-old me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I'd probably still say marine biologist or something that allows me to go diving, not flying. Before we get to the next point, please subscribe to my channel Minutemon, especially if you love watches. The new year just started and I'm on a IWC kick because the next video after this will be about the new IWC Engineer 40mm in blue dial. So make sure you're subscribed to see that one next. And if you're looking for a new watch, let's say an IWC, my store Carrot & Co is an authorized dealer for IWC and many other brands. You can check us out on our website or visit our new store at 3663 Main Street, Flushing, New York, which is about 5 minutes from LaGuardia Airport, as well as Arthur Ashe Stadium, Citi Field, and home to some of the best Chinese food in downtown Flushing. Gotta show love for Flushing. Okay, number 3, let's talk about the bracelet. Holy cow. Now, I've seen online that the Mark 15 comes with 3 bracelet options. There's a mesh bracelet option, this 5-link style, or a leather strap. I chose to find one with the 5-link brush bracelet. In pictures, it looked better to me, and also I have a mesh bracelet from a third-party brand, so I figured I could still get the look if I wanted to. When I first unboxed the Mark 15, the bracelet details blew me away. I love that the 2 center links are raised slightly, so when you run your finger down the bracelet, it's very aesthetically pleasing. On top of that, the bracelet drops straight down from the case, no flare. It is 19mm throughout with no taper and no micro adjustment, but honestly, it is so comfortable that I forget about all that other stuff. And 19mm is awesome for me because I own other watches with the same lug size, so I have multiple straps ready, and this IWC is a strap monster. Also, the folding clasp sits flat with no additional thickness, and that's thanks to how the inside of the clasp is hollowed out, similar to the clasp on the Bulgari Octofinissimo. The inside of the clasp also has perlage stamping, which is those overlapping circular decoration, which is a nice detail that can go unappreciated, but makes me love that the designers thought it was important to decorate it still. Since the Mark 15 originally launched in 1999, that was right before Richemont Group purchased IWC in 2000, so there are noticeable design differences after and before the acquisition. And the bracelet is extremely comfortable. I thought I would wear this on straps more. I mean, I am currently wearing it on a rubber strap from Deluxe, but this bracelet is amazing. It's a watch that I definitely forget that I'm wearing, and I mean that in all the best kind of ways. And I think that's perfect for a go anywhere, do anything watch. Now, number 4, let's talk about the functions and movement. Like mentioned, it's a simple ETA movement with a 48 power reserve, which is all fine for me. Here's a few reasons why. Sure, a longer power reserve such as the 120 hour on the Mark 20 is a great improvement, especially if the watch keeps the same thickness, but increased power reserve is not really a deal maker or breaker for me because it only matters when I stop wearing the watch to wear another watch. I kind of think of power reserve as a collector problem nowadays. So if I wear an automatic watch every day, even if it has 48-hour power reserve, I won't really need to wind it since it's getting so much wrist time. I learned this lesson especially when I got the Cartier Santos Medium. Also, because the Mark 15 is discontinued, I had to buy it used, which I found online through eBay through a Japanese retailer. I think Japanese collectors in general take great care of their belongings, so it was in great condition even though it was polished over. But again, in this point of my collecting journey, I don't really mind that it was polished. Truthfully, I don't really have an eye to even tell what it would have looked like unpolished, and overall it just looks great. And so when I unboxed the watch was not running. And thankfully, because it was an ETA movement instead of the JLC movement from the Mark 12, it was relatively fast turnaround time to get it serviced and back on my wrist in working order. And now it keeps great time. I think the last time I checked was like plus 3 seconds per day. And generally, I like watches with no date window, but I've gone back to really appreciate having a date window since this is going to be my go anywhere, do anything watch. And after wearing it for about 2 months nonstop, this might be my most worn watch of 2025. Who knows? And number 5, finally, I saved the best detail for last. It's this fish crown, which seems pretty simple. You know, a fish for the 60-meter water resistance with screw-down crown. Cool, right? No, let me tell you all the drama because of this little fish. Now, IWC has used this fish logo on the crowns of their water-resistant watches for at least 50 years, from the 1950s to the mid-2000s. There was a period where IWC removed the fish and put the Probus Scafusa emblem, which I think I butchered that, which is one of their IWC official logos. So why did IWC remove the fish logo? Well, in the year 2000, Richemont Group purchased IWC, JLC, and A. Lange & from an engineer and industrial company named Mannesmann. So IWC is operating under Richemont, under their watch division, and later in 2016, Richemont was like, hey, let's register IWC's trademarks, including this fish logo on the crown. You know, since we've been using it for like 50 years and people know it's our thing. So the people at Richemont were like, yep, I'm on board with that. I love fish. Let's do it. So Richemont went to register the IWC fish logo to the Swiss Federal Institute of Intellectual Property, aka the IGE. And IGE got it and was like, yo, this logo is kind of fishy. You guys have a problem with religion or something? Because this fish looks like Etch-These. Etch-These, the fish logo used in Christianity. You're using the Etch-These fish for your watch crown? You could be indirectly affecting Christians. What? So IWC was not permitted to use this fish crown logo, and they even went to file an appeal, and they were like, guys, this fish is not going to hurt anyone. It's just for water resistance. We've been doing it for like 50 years already. Please, it's just a fish. I know they look similar. Here's a picture of it. Then you can see side by side. So both sides are arguing for like 2 years until the Federal Administrative Court stepped in and was like, IGE, you guys are bugging. The fish isn't even used by name in religious rites, and it isn't even worshipped, so you can't claim this fish. Plus, there's a bunch of other similarly drawn fishes used commercially, and none of these violate religious feelings. So Richemont won, and IWC was able to bring back the fish crown on a special edition such as the Big Pilot Edition Black Carbon, but I noticed that most of their modern watches still don't use the fish logo. I'm just saying, I'm just happy my Mark 15 has it. And those were, I don't know, 5 reasons why I picked this watch. Honestly, I had a blast researching this watch. I learned a lot before I got it, and then I learned even more after I got it. And it's so crazy how this simple time and date printed dial has a lot to say. Now, if you love watches, subscribe to my channel, Minutemon. Again, the next video I'm going to be doing is going to be on the IWC Engineer Blue Dial in 40mm. So let me know what questions you have. And if you want to see another review, you can check out my first Omega in space, 10 details you may not have known. It's been a minute. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.